O Pioneers, Part 5, Alexandra, Chapter 1. Ivar was sitting at a cobbler's bench in the barn, mending harness by the light of a lantern, and repeating to himself the 101st Psalm. It was only 5 o'clock of a mid-October day, but a storm had come up in the afternoon, bringing black clouds, a cold wind, and torrents of rain. The old man wore his buffalo skin coat and occasionally stopped to warm his fingers at the lantern. Suddenly a woman burst into the shed, as if she had been blown in, accompanied by a shower of raindrops. It was Signa, wrapped in a man's overcoat and wearing a pair of boots over her shoes. In time of trouble, Signa had come back to stay with her mistress, for she was the only one of the maids from whom Alexandra would accept much personal service. It was 3 months now since the news of the terrible thing that had happened in Frank Shabata's orchard had first run like a fire over the divide. Signa and Nels were staying on with Alexandra until the winter. "Ivar," Signa exclaimed as she wiped the rain from her face, "do you know where she is?" The old man put down his cobbler's knife. "Who? The mistress?" "Yes, she went away about 3 o'clock. I happened to look out of the window and saw her going across the fields in her thin dress and sun hat. And now this storm has come on. I thought she was going to Mrs. Hiller's, and I telephoned as soon as the thunder stopped, but she had not been there. I'm afraid she is out somewhere and will get her death of cold." Ivar put on his cap and took up the lantern. Ja, we will see. I will hitch the boy's mare to the cart and go." Signa followed him across the wagon shed to the horse's stable. She was shivering with cold and excitement. "Where do you suppose she can be, Ivar?" The old man lifted a set of single harness carefully from its peg. "How should I know?" "But you think she is at the graveyard, don't you?" Signa persisted. "So do I. Oh, I wish she would be more like herself. I can't believe it's Alexandra Bergson come to this, with no head about anything. I have to tell her when to eat and when to go to bed." "Patience, patience, sister," muttered Ivar as he settled the bit in the horse's mouth. "When the eyes of the flesh are shut, the eyes of the spirit are open. She will have a message from those who are gone, and that will bring her peace. Until then, we must bear with her. You and I are the only ones who have weight with her. She trusts us." "How awful it's been these last 3 months," Signa held the lantern so that he could see to buckle the straps. "It don't seem right that we must all be so miserable. Why do we all have to be punished? Seems to me like good times would never come again." Ivar expressed himself in a deep sigh, but said nothing. He stooped and took a sandburr from his toe. "Ivar," Signa asked suddenly, "will you tell me why you go barefoot? All the time I've lived in this house I wanted to ask you. Is it for penance or what?" "No, sister, it is for the indulgence of the body. From my youth up I have had a strong, rebellious body and have been subject to every kind of temptation. Even in age, my temptations are prolonged. It was necessary to make some allowances, and the feet, as I understand it, are free members. There is no divine prohibition for them in the 10 Commandments. The hands, the tongue, the eyes, the heart, all the bodily desires we are commanded to subdue, but the feet are free members. I indulge them without harm to anyone, even to trampling in filth when my desires are low. They are quickly cleaned again." Signa did not laugh. She looked thoughtful as she followed Ivar out to the wagon shed and held the shafts up for him, while he backed in the mare and buckled the holdbacks. "You have been a good friend to the mistress, Ivar," she murmured. "And you. God be with you," replied Ivar as he clambered into the cart and put the lantern under the oilcloth lap cover. "Now for a ducking, my girl," he said to the mare, gathering up the reins. As they emerged from the shed, a stream of water running off the thatch struck the mare on the neck. She tossed her head indignantly, then struck out bravely on the soft ground, slipping back again and again as she climbed the hill to the main road. Between the rain and the darkness, Ivar could see very little, so he let Emil's mare have the rein, keeping her head in the right direction. When the ground was level, he turned her out of the dirt road upon the sod, where she was able to trod without slipping. Before Ivar reached the graveyard, 3 miles from the house, the storm had spent itself, and the downpour had died into a soft, dripping rain. The sky and the land were a dark smoke color and seemed to be coming together like 2 waves. When Ivar stopped at the gate and swung out his lantern, a white figure rose from beside John Bergson's white stone. The old man sprang to the ground and shuffled toward the gate, calling, "Mistress, mistress!" Alexandra hurried to meet him and put her hand on his shoulder. "Ivar, there's nothing to be worried about. I'm sorry if I've scared you all. I didn't notice the storm till it was on me, and I couldn't walk against it. I'm glad you've come. I am so tired I didn't know how I'd ever get home." Ivar swung the lantern up so that it shone in her face. "Good. You are enough to frighten us, mistress. You look like a drowned woman. How could you do such a thing?" Groaning and mumbling, he led her out of the gate and helped her into the cart, wrapping her in the dry blankets on which she had been sitting. Alexandra smiled at his solicitude. "Not much use in that, Ivar. You will only shut the wet in. I don't feel so cold now, but I'm heavy and numb. I'm glad you came." Ivar turned the mare and urged her into a sliding trot. Her feet sent back a continual splatter of mud. Alexandra spoke to the old man as they jogged along through the sullen gray twilight of the storm. "Ivar, I think it has done me good to get cold clear through like this once. I don't believe I shall suffer so much any more. When you get so near the dead, they seem more real than living. Worldly thoughts leave one. Ever since Emil died, I've suffered so when it rained. Now that I've been out in it with him, I shan't dread it. After you once get cold clear through, the feeling of the rain on you is sweet. It seems to bring back feelings you had when you were a baby. It carries you back into the dark before you were born. You can't see things, but they come to you, somehow, and you know them and aren't afraid of them. Maybe it's like that with the dead. If they feel anything at all, it's the old things, before they were born, that comfort people like the feeling of their own bed." Let me repeat that. If they feel anything at all, it's the old things, before they were born, that comfort feel like the feeling of their own bed does when they are little. "Mistress," said Ivar reproachfully, "those are bad thoughts. The dead are in paradise." Then he hung his head, for he did not believe that Emil was in paradise.